Hi friends, it's Claire from Scrappynerduk UK, and I have something slightly different today. I do a live video over at Quirky Kits every Tuesday at the moment, and I thought I would try and get the video off of Facebook Live and edit it and get it up on my channel for you to see. So this layout here, I'm using the current Quirky kit to create, and there's a lot of Bloom Street in this collection, in this kit, sorry. And so I decided that I was going to use, I think it's all Bloom Street actually I've used for this layout. And I'm making a Dreamcatcher. So I've used that gorgeous paper, and I know it's got the cutter parts on the other side. But I have had one of these papers already, so I'm not too precious about using that. So I've just trimmed down 1 inch from each side, the top and the left side, or the bottom and the right, whichever way you want to look at it. And I've just mounted that onto a piece of white cardstock to give me a white border around my edge. And I'm just lifting up the edges around this pattern paper just to give it a little bit more interest. And then I'm going to move on. Now what I've actually done is I have already made my hoop for my my thread to go round. Oh, so before I do that, I'm just adding in some white splatters. You can't really see it here, but I have pencil marked in roughly where my hoop is going to be. So this is the hoop that I've made, and you can just cut this out using some dies, or you could use a Cricut or a silhouette. And you just need to make sure that it is really strong. So use some cardboard. So those pizza boxes come in real handy for this. And I've wrapped mine with some washi to strengthen it as well. And then I've just wrapped some white wool around. So now I'm going to look to show you the process behind how you string a Dreamcatcher. Mine is not perfect. I've only done this a couple of times. So yeah, so all I'm doing first, I've just got this gold metallic embroidery floss, and I've wrapped that around just to give the edge a little bit more interest, so it's not just fully white. And then with the same embroidery floss, I'm just going to tie off a knot. Now it's important that you put all of the knots in the same places, so where the wool ends, make sure you tie the knot on to do the extra embroidery floss around the hoop. And then when you're going to start doing the stringing for the middle, make sure that you would tie that knot in the same place, and that is all going to get covered up in an embellishment cluster. So what we want to do is we want to work out roughly, this is about 6, you need about 6 points for this. So you want the embroidery floss to come over the top, and then you want to pull it underneath and back up through the loop. And then what you want to do is wrap it around that loop again. So back through the same hole and wrap it around. That will just tighten that up. Now you need a good bit of tension on this because there is going to be, when you come round to the next rounds, it needs to pull that embroidery floss in. So again, over the top of the loop, and then pull it around the back and underneath the string. And then you want to go underneath, so pull the embroidery floss. So I put it all through the hoop first, and then up, back through that gap. Now I say put it through the triangle, this doesn't create a triangle at the moment, but you'll see what I mean when we come to round 2. So again, up over the top and then back underneath through. So as I said, this is going to create 6 lengths when I've finished mine, and I'm going to pop this on fast forward because it's the same process the whole way through. So I now have 6 points, and they're not exactly perfect, like I said. Now on to the next row. So all we want to do is come underneath that row that we've created already, and then we want to go around the back, and we want to thread it through that loop that we've just created. Now what that's going to do is create a knot, and then you want to get that knot nice, and so you need the embroidery thread to be nice and tight. And you want that knot to sit in the middle of that the line of embroidery floss that you've just gone through. So you'll see what I mean. This first one doesn't turn out perfectly, but you'll see as I go along. I'm not too sure why. This has happened to me a couple of times, but you go. So if you go underneath that last thread that you created, and then you've given yourself that triangle, and then you want to come around the back of the triangle and pull your thread through, and that's going to give you that knot. And then just move it backwards and forwards and get that tightened up. Again, one more time. So we want to come around the back of that thread. We've created our triangle, and then we want to come around the back of that as well. And then just pull that tight. Okay, now you can do multiple rounds, so I go 3 rounds on this. So again, when I get round to the end, I just carry on going, adding in the same process as the last round, where you go around and underneath that last thread, and then you want to go around and through the little triangle that you've created, and then just tightening that up. So once you've done, all you want to do is just tie off your thread, and you're going to have a little bit of an overhang because obviously it needs to tie somewhere, but it creates this lovely dream catcher. So onto the feathers. So I've used a Vicky Boutin stamp and die set to create these, and to get a bit of authenticity in the feathers, what I've done is I've just used the same embroidery floss. And I've stuck it to the back of the feather. I've then wrapped it around the top of the feather, and then I have stuck it again so the embroidery thread then comes up, so it looks like it's hanging from the top of the hoop. And I'm adding then some foam dots onto the back of my feathers to give those a little bit of height and dimension. And then from there, I'm just going to figure out exactly where the embroidery thread needs to be cut to, exactly where I want my hoop to go. And I use glossy accents to be able to stick all of this down. So I'm just using a little bit of glossy accents there to stick the thread down initially. And then what I've done is I've done a few where I've added on sequins, and I have, I think I put 6 sequins on a couple of the strands. And then same process again, I'm just going to stick that onto the back of the feather, wrap it around the top of the feather, pull it back down, and then and this is just normal normal sticky tape, and on goes my foam dots. What I've actually done is on the 2 end ones, I've actually connected 2 of the smaller feathers to the embroidery floss on the bigger feathers, if that makes sense. You can see there on the left, that embroidery floss is actually attached to the other feather. And again, just figuring out where that's going to go. I'm just going to then just draw a pencil mark around the bottom of the hoop, just so I know where the string needs to sit. And so I fight with my bottle of glossy accents. It's nearly finished, this one, so I just need to get over it and open a new bottle. So as I said, glossy accents to stick all of this down. Don't worry too much about all those strands hanging out. They are going to get covered up with an embellishment cluster. Yeah, I nearly dropped it then as well. The joys of creating on a live video, right? So the only thing that I don't show you in here is the final layout, because I did add a couple of plaited embroidery threads as well, so a couple dangling down in between the feathers, but I will show you the finished layout at the end. But that's the only thing that was missing, because I did those off camera because plaiting sometimes takes a while. So I've just used a dotty doily from the same Quirky kit, and I am using the inner part of that white cardstock that I used for the border to back my photo. Now, because there's already a lot going on the layout, I decided to just mount my photo just on the white. I'm not going to add any more pattern paper behind it. And I am then just going to pop that up onto some foam, and just to give that a little bit of dimension as well. And then I'm just going to stick that down on top of the doily. And this is just some really thin foam tape. Now, obviously, that Dreamcatcher is going to have some dimension to it anyway. That's a piece of cardboard wrapped with wool. So we are going to have some dimension. And this would work great in a shadow box. So you could pop this into a shadow box as well, which would look quite nice. If you don't want the dimension in your scrapbook pages. It's not that thick. I wouldn't imagine it's that much thicker than a chipboard piece, like a crepe paper chipboard piece normally is anyway. So here is where I'm going to put the embellishment cluster, and it's really going to cover up that group of where all the end of the threads are. And I'm going to stick some so they're flat to the page. And then I'm going to have some up on some dimensional foam, and then I'm going to actually stick one to the embroidery frame, you know what I mean, the hoop thing anyway. I keep calling it embroidery frame. So yeah, I'm just going to use, and I've got a couple of different heights of the foam dots, so that helps to give it a bit more interest. So I'm just going through the die cut pack. This is the Floral die cut pack, and I'm not ashamed to say this is the third pack that I've had of these, and I absolutely love them. They are so pretty. So I'm just going to, oh, I see that flower that's landed on one of the feathers at the bottom. I actually quite like that. Never mind, it doesn't stay there. So yeah, I'm just going through here to decide which flowers I want to use. And then, oh, here's the foam. And then I initially was just going to have one embellishment cluster to the left, but on the live, sort of deciding where I wanted the title to go, and then it felt unbalanced. So I ended up putting another embellishment cluster to the left of the photo as well. Sorry, to the right of the photo, should I say. So I'm just adding in just a few of the sprigs here. Now, I did cut apart this paper from the same collection, and it's got all these little spring sentiment words on. But they're quite thick in terms of all of the colour that surrounds the sentiment. So I just trim that down. And then I'm just going to tuck that into one of the clusters just to add in a little bit of extra interest. And then next up is my title. I'm just going to use this pre-made word bloom, which again, so these weren't in the Quirky kit, but these were in my stash. So I thought they matched the kit, so I'm going to pull those in as well. And I was contemplating putting this title on the Dreamcatcher, and I thought if I do that, I know that these stickers are not going to stick. So a little trick is to pop it onto some cardstock, whatever colour you wish, and then just trim around it, and then that gives you a base to be able to stick to the whatever you're trying to stick it to. So if you're using a cut file that's quite holy, then this is a good technique for you as well. Yeah, so stick it onto some cardstock, trim around it, and then that's much easily stuck to the anything that's not flat, if that makes sense. So here's my embellishment cluster up to the top right, and I had a bit of overexposure in the photo in the top right corner. I think we were taking photos behind, or there was a lot of light behind us. So I'm just using my photo box there just to add some weight on until that glossy accent sticks. And then just deciding which flowers I want in my cluster. And I'm going to do the same again. So I'm just going to use some, I'm going to stick some flat, going to use some dimensional foam. And then this one here, rather than wasting half of the flower, I do cut it in half. To use the other half on another layout. I was going to use it on here, and there wasn't anywhere really to put it, so it'll make it onto another layout. And one tip I have is make sure you use all of the layers to tuck your embellishments into. So here I've only got the white cardstock layer, so I don't have a great deal of layers to play with here. But yeah, tuck your embellishments under different layers to help with the placement as well. So again, another one of those little wordy stickers, and that ends up going there instead. And I've already stuck the other one down. So and then just the final touches, I'm just going to come in with some Nuvo drops. I can't remember the name of the colour on this. It came in the kit as well. So I'm just adding a couple of little sprinkles with the Nuvo drops in amongst those two clusters. And then I have some more Nuvo drops, and I'm going to use these in the centre of the flowers. So I think that one's mint. I think it's got mint in the title or something in the name of it. So I'm just going to add those in to the centre of the flowers, just to give the flowers a little bit of extra dimension as well. And yeah, it all works really well. So as I said, I put some stills at the end of this so you can see what the finished layout looks like with those added plats in as well. And if you have enjoyed this video, then please do give it a thumbs up. If you're new, I'd love you to just subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.